So hello, hey, welcome. I am so glad each and every one of you is here. I'm grateful for all of you joining us online as well. It is so good to be together. My name is Jen Crow. I'm one of the ministers here at First Universalist, and I know that this is a book event, but it is also a church, and so I just wanted to extend that welcome to you. Here at First Universalist, we believe in the power of love and hope. This is a congregation that believes in that universalist spirit of love, a love that draws a circle so wide that no one is left out, that everyone is drawn in, a love so strong that it will not let any one of us go. This is what we are about here. This is who we are. And you are welcome if it is your first time or your 500th time here. We're so glad to be together. So I'm going to turn it over to Jill.
Hello, everybody here and online. My name is Jill Braithwaite. I've been a member of First Universalist Church for about 18 years, and I just want to echo Jen's words of welcome. We are so glad to be together today to celebrate the publication of Reverend Jen Crow's new book, Take What You Need, Life Lessons After Losing Everything. Just a few quick housekeeping things. We're planning to go about an hour, and then we'll save 10 to 15 minutes or so at the end for a few questions in a Q&A. There are pieces of paper and pens kind of in the middle of the pews that you can find if you need to, if you want to write something down. And I'll come around, when we're getting close to that part of this afternoon, I'll come around and collect those. We likely won't be able to get to all the questions, but we'll get to some. And after the conversation and the Q&A, please join us downstairs in the social hall for cake and coffee. The cake is not just a tasty treat, but it is a visual treat. Books are available for sale down there, and Jen will be signing. Woo! If you haven't gotten your hands on a copy yet, the book is truly a fantastic read, and you won't regret getting yourself a copy. And I also think it makes a really, really nice gift for somebody you love. So get a good start on your Christmas shopping. Okay, so just a very brief introduction of these two wonderful women to my left. Reverend Kate Tucker served this church as its associate minister from 1997 until 2012. Kate's welcoming spirit was found in her preaching and her small group ministry. Currently, she serves as a spiritual director and usually has a writing project underway. Welcome, Kate, and thank you for being part of this. And this afternoon, Kate will be in conversation with the Reverend Jen Crow. Many of you know Jen as the senior minister of this church. She has led this congregation with a ministry that embodies love and integrity in all its aspects. And she is the creator of Wellspring, a Unitarian Universalist program of spiritual deepening used in more than 25 congregations. We are delighted again to welcome you all here. And now I will hand it over to you, Kate.
Am I on?
Yeah.
Oh, thank you, Jill. Thank you, all the committee people who helped this happen. And what a sweet treat to be in a room with all of you, masked or unmasked. Yeah, there's hope. And with Jen, dear Jen, my not only colleague, but deep friend. So we have to watch our language a little.
It's true.
And I know we're supposed to sit and be reasonable, sit still and be reasonable today, but there's a part of me that just wants a dance party. And so I will, to counter that, I will call us just to a little bit of breathing together, some deep breaths. Those of you who have just come from lunch or meetings or the cold or the car, let's just take some deep breaths together. There is a love holding us. There is a love holding all that we love. There is a love holding all. There is a love. Jen, let's you and I light this chalice. This is from our friend Rumi. Sometimes you hear a voice through the door calling you, as fish out of water hear the waves, or a hunting falcon hears the drums, come back, come back. This turning toward what you love saves you. Read the book of your life, which has been given you. A voice comes to your soul saying, lift your foot, cross over, move into the openness of question and answer and question. Which is what we're doing.
Okay. Guess we're going to do this now.
It's not, we want it to be not so much question and answer question as conversation, but, and I expect that I'm going to do a little too much talking right at the beginning, because Jen's going to do most of it from then on, and no pressure. And so read the book of your life.
Right.
Yeah, right. So, Jen, you've made a book. It is a solid object you hold in your hands. It is on the page. And you who lost your precious former library in the fire, what is it like to take this in hand?
It's a little surreal, is the answer to that. I think mostly because I know I worked hard on this for a long time, and I'm working hard on it now, sharing it. But it also just feels like exactly what needed to happen. Mm-hmm. So it's here. Of course it's here.
It's here. And with Henry's design?
That's right. So Henry was in 4th grade, my son, when our fire happened. And they had the students in their classroom for their binders of work for the year. You had to make your whatever this is. And he drew a lightning bolt and a rainbow at the bottom. And so it has been super meaningful for me that this has turned out with the lightning bolt on top, because my family, it turns out, knew that the rainbow was coming way before I did. Mm. So they were holding on from the very beginning.
Yeah. And yes, shout out to Henry and Kate and Loretta who are with us. So glad. Because this is your world. And we will get around to ways in which this is not simply your book,
okay,
but their book and our book. So take what you need. It's the story of a lightning strike and house fire you and Loretta and Henry and Kate experienced in the night, October 30th, 2016.
August 30th.
August, did I say October?
You did. Yeah.
Little nerves. And it is about that road to recovery, that trauma, that road to recovery and renewal. And this book is so much more than a fire story.
Yeah.
It's a memoir that reaches back into your childhood, Jen, and explores events that you never thought you'd share with any public, certainly not with these to whom you minister directly. And we will say more about courage later. And this book is also a ministry. Yours, Jen, and yours, First Universalist people, as it goes out into the world. So, having said that, if it's all right with you, could we start on the bathroom floor?
Sure.
A go-to place, crying on the bathroom floor, those weeks just after the fire. A sub-theme of Jen's book is weeping as spiritual practice. Holy hygiene, sobbing as holy hygiene.
Which, I just have to say, if you know me well, I don't cry. I hate crying so much. I'm learning to welcome it in, but it's like 2 tears, and I swear I've been sobbing for days. I have a really hard time with this.
So when you talk to me about that, you're exaggerating.
Yeah. Well, I'm telling you how it feels.
Yeah. So, can I read this part, or did you want? I mean, because you're going to read everything else, so I want to read this part. All right. Am I hissing a little? It's okay. All right. This is really early on in the book. Sleep didn't come easily to me in those first days. So after everyone was tucked into bed and snoring softly, I'd sneak into the bathroom and settle myself on the floor, back to the wall, head in my hands, crying quietly as I could, tears running hot down my face. I couldn't let them know I was falling apart. When my breath went ragged, hitching and heaving with fear, I'd imagine something, some love that could breathe with me. When that wasn't enough, because come on, this is the 21st century and I still had my phone. She is hilarious too, by the way, in this book. I did what we all do, scoured the internet for books or blogs that might relate, but nothing went beyond tips for working with your insurance company or getting through the first days of shock. I desperately wanted a survival story to keep me company in the night, some reassurance that one day I too might have my own.
Yeah.
So, is there anything you really want to read to these folks right now that you just don't want to get through the hour without having read?
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, thank you for that. Because part of what is true in all of this is that I didn't feel like I had a survival story of someone else's to read through this experience, but I did feel very much accompanied and not alone in the journey. And that was because of my family, because of my team, because of this church, because of people I didn't even know who reached out with kindness. So the thing that has to be said over and over is thank you. Thank you to the folks who were right next to us in this, and thank you to the folks who were a little further out. Thanks to everyone in this congregation and in all the circles in my life that supported me and keep on supporting me. And thank you doesn't even begin to describe it. But that said, I will turn a little later in the book. The year that my house burned down, I experienced an unexpected blessing. The minister who had held my position before me had retired just before I arrived, and it happened she was still in town. She had told me she couldn't support the church she loved in the ways she was used to, but she could support me. And she did. She had time, and with that time, she showed up to sort through the boxes from the restoration company, to pick through the wet insulation and search the jewelry that had gone flying from our dressers, to polish the passed-down silver from my grandmother that we pulled out of the buffet. In so many ways, she was there for me, offering time, but she also offered poetry, which, if you know Kate, is no surprise. When it was time to move back home after our fire, my clergy friends gathered to bless our house for our family's return. Each of them brought poems and prayers, talismans and stones to encircle us in safety. She brought words adapted from this poem by Karen Benke. The poem's called Not Without Longing. Come, rest inside this house you left to travel so far. Home now, the braided rope of the past, no longer anything you must look for or save. The heart, left open, will heal itself as a new moon rises. Now, she must have really thought I needed this poem because she gave it to me on several occasions. The truth is, it's tucked in places all over our house. Nestled in the cabinet where we keep the bread, next to my morning meditation manual, scrawled out on a reused scrap of paper, placed neatly in the packet of poems that lives in my bedside table. Maybe it was the rest inside this house that she wanted for me. Maybe it was the feeling of home now. And maybe it was the reminder of the most trustworthy rule I've ever known, that as much as it hurts sometimes, the heart left open will heal itself as a new moon rises.
The heart left open will heal itself.
That's right.
We were so grateful you let us love you.
Yeah. That was really hard, but I mean it not because I had hard people around me. It's hard for me to let that in sometimes.
Thank you for reading that. And that love theme, healing love theme, is going to be, well, no secret. That's where we begin and end in this time together, because that's where life begins and ends, right?
Right.
So, Jen, your story is bravely revealing about struggles in childhood and adult years. It's a book about courage and grit and gumption courage, but also, and maybe especially, about the courage of vulnerability. Learning that, practicing that. And each book talk you do, you get to decide how you wish to hold that and what you want to share out loud.
I do like being in charge of that. I like that a lot. Oh, let's see.
No rush here.
Okay, good. Well, I'll probably get one of the harder ones first. That this vulnerability and courage thing, I really learned it from other people, from watching them. And I learned it a lot from watching my family. So I'll go with this. It was a few weeks after the fire, and we'd all begun to settle in to the rental house that would be our home for the next 10 months. 4 hand-carved parrots kept watch on the posts of my daughter's twin bed as I read her a bedtime story. When the story ended, her 5-year-old questions began. Did we lose this in the fire? She wanted to know. How about that? She peppered me with questions, taking most of my answers in stride. But then we got to the one that would ultimately undo her. What about Buckle Bear? She asked. Surely Buckle Bear had survived. Buckle Bear was a large stuffed animal covered in different multicolored, multi-patterned straps that crossed its chest, each one with a different kind of closure. We had gotten it for our daughter when she was just 18 months old to keep her occupied as we drove across the country, making our way from New York to Minnesota. She loved that bear, spending hours buckling and unbuckling, snapping and unsnapping all of its different closures on that trip and in the years since. I knew the bear was a goner the day I'd walked through her room, and as soon as I left the house, I had started a search for a replacement, but I came up empty-handed. Now, as a parent, I promised myself that no matter what, I wouldn't lie to the kids. This was an absolute for me. I wanted them to know that they could trust me, even and especially when they were hurting. So I said it out loud. Buckle Bear is gone, honey. We lost him in the fire. Her small body shifted, silence, then a hard sound to listen to. Her sounds brought everyone else in the house running. First to arrive was her brother, with my wife right on his heels. What happened, they asked, sure that she was hurt there in the bed. It's Buckle Bear, I said. I told her that he's gone. At 8 years old, her big brother knew exactly what to do. He crawled right into that creepy twin-sized bed and held on to her. I know, he kept saying, I know. A moment later, my wife climbed into the bed too, holding him as he held her, and soon all of us were crying. Somehow I was both there in the moment and observing it too. Always the practical one, I was worried that this tiny hand-carved antique bed might collapse under our collective weight, becoming the first security deposit casualty of our time at the house if I climbed in too. So I stayed there on the floor, kneeling next to them, wrapping my arms around this weeping pile of my beloveds. They were wailing and sobbing and holding on to each other in our loss. We stayed there for a long time, crying, telling stories about Buckle Bear. We remembered together how we'd chosen Buckle Bear for Kate because at 6 months old, she'd managed to unhook the straps on her car seat. And ever since then, we'd called her our little Houdini. We'd hoped that by giving her Buckle Bear, he would distract her from unbuckling her car seat on the long ride across the country. And it worked, he did. The buckles were harder. The snaps made a satisfying sound when she closed them and popped open when she squeezed the edges just right. As we told the stories about the bear, Kate's older brother, Henry, piped in. You know, he said, I never understood why you called it Buckle Bear. It's obviously a monkey, not a bear. No way, the rest of us said. It was definitely a bear. Oh yeah? Then why does it have a tail? Which it does. Master of the obvious, unlike the rest of us. This stumped us. So the next day, I got online and I looked again. And sure enough, there it was, Buckle Monkey. I went ahead and placed our order. One strappy, multicolored, multi-patterned, glorious Buckle Monkey bear traveled across the country after a night of grief and loss, stories and connection. My family taught me something about grief that night, about letting the loss roll through you like a wave, unstopped by bedtimes or rickety four-poster beds, or even decades of disbelief that grief could be held and released in a way that would not kill me. I learned that we would survive the pain, that I could survive the crying and the tears, that the loss would not, in fact, crack me into a million pieces and send me swirling off into a great abyss. We would cry, and we would comfort each other, and we would laugh with the tears still wet on our faces, and we would not let each other grow. So they taught me all about this.
Jen, so many lessons unforeseen.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm guessing that if Loretta and Kate and Henry each wrote their own book, we'd get such different versions of some of these stories.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. So, speaking of Kate, one precious moment in your book for me, which gets us into another topic, is when then 9-year-old Kate would explain what it's like in her body as she waits for the roller coaster ride, the butterflies that tell her she's excited and terrorized, nervous, all at the same time. And you said, I listened amazed at what she knows about her own inner life, her multiplicity of emotions. And I'm remembering when you talked about entering your, I think, second year of sobriety. And people supporting you said, you're going to start experiencing a bigger range of emotions. You won't just be happy or angry or sad. You're going to be happy and angry and sad at the same time. And this is a theme you return to often, Jen, our inner capacity to hold multiple truths and to kind of elasticize our inner experience to hold the whole human catastrophe and make room. So, and in your book, we see people teaching you this, your college roommate, your 12-step comrades, even the teachers you find through books.
Yeah.
Anyway, you're turning to something.
Yeah, well, you were making me think about a big part of what I have been learning is about this. We can hold more than one thing at a time. We can hold a lot of things at once, and they're all true, right? So it's my version of a story is good and true. Somebody else's version of the story is good and true, all the way around, right? And I've been learning to understand that as like a kaleidoscope view, and that depending on how you turn your perception, the whole story can change and kind of light up in a different way. And now I'm rambling off on a tangent, but I've become convinced that that's the God's eye view, or whatever language we want to use for that, that being able to see this story, this story, this story, this story is the God's eye view, right? And that when we can turn our perspective and change it, we get a little glimpse into that, and maybe a glimpse into how it's possible to love in this deep, everybody, everything way. But I digress. So some of how I got there is through reading. I mean, that's first refuge for me was books, and being able to hear other stories that were different than my own through books. So sometimes other people's stories help us to better understand our own. Maybe that's why I've always been a voracious reader. Safely snuggled in on my couch, I can travel the whole world, immersing myself in history or science or fantasy. No smelly strangers or foods I don't want to eat. No uncomfortable silences as I get to know new people. Just me and my book and the adventure unfolding at a pace I can control. Reading wasn't only about the far away. It was also about understanding the very near. Growing up, I read my way through the psychology section of our local library as if my life depended on it. As I observed my mom's erratic and sometimes scary behaviors, I wanted to understand what was happening and what I could do to help. Gathering up all of the information I could find helped me feel less out of control, as the science showed more compassion than most people did, naming mental illness as just that, an illness, instead of a moral failing. See how that perspective shift? The stories and the science I encountered in those books softened my heart and shifted my understanding, opening up the possibility that my mom's inconsistent ability to care for us might not be my fault, might not be in my power to cure. All those books, in the end, helped me to understand not only her, but myself, too. I didn't think I was reading that part. I was going to go for ice cream.
Yeah, we might get around to ice cream.
Yeah.
How you doing?
Breathe in.
Is it
Just fine.
Is it easier?
I'm fine. Everything's fine.
I know. She's always, it's fine, no problem.
Why do you ask?
Not nervous. No.
Thank you, Judith. That's right.
Just remember we're together here. Yeah. Which brings us to, Lordy, the importance of community. The power of the we, because becoming a whole human isn't a solo undertaking, it is a group project.
Yes.
And it wasn't so easy learning that. It took time and it took risk, but as one of your wise ones said, humans are a good investment.
I believe that.
Oh, what a great line.
I wasn't so sure that I was, but I was pretty sure other people were.
But real humans were, yeah.
Yeah. Let me read a little bit about that.
Yeah, I'd love that.
We know that the fires of life will come and keep coming. We know that we will lose people and things that matter. It happens when relationships shift, when illnesses strike, when a job ends or a cycle in our lives turns. It happens again and again. The question is not if the fires will come, but what we will do with them and what stories we will tell ourselves and each other. This life is ours to make. ours to live and give back in all the ways we choose. Our complicated, complex, ever-changing stories are ours to write. We also know, or I also know, humans are a good investment. We doubt-filled, broken, beautiful, flawed, and creative creatures. We can hold on to each other, trusting in the heart's ability to heal itself. We can turn to the generations that have lived and died, bearing witness to the story's power to imagine and write new ways of being into existence. Weeks before the bolt of lightning that blew up our lives, I got a new tattoo. A giant watercolor phoenix. It's over here. I'd been dreaming about that tattoo for ages, and it finally felt like time. My life was my own. I was settled and satisfied, happy in my marriage, crushing it in my career. After years of therapy and sobriety, I was reclaiming my body, too. This tattoo would cover up the last visible scar from my cutting days as a teenager and young adult. The ink would mark my body as healed and healing. This tattoo would go with me everywhere I went, reminding me of who I was and what I could do. A phoenix, a work of art, rising from the ashes of experiences that could have killed me. I am here, beautiful and flowing. I will rise. In the days after the fire, the irony of it kept me laughing pretty hard. A phoenix tattoo? For real. You can't make this shit up. But there it was, and there it is. And thank God for that tattoo. A daily reminder of who I am and what I can do, and I'd say what we can do. The power of the past helping me to heal instead of harm this time. Thanks to the past, I knew that hardship did not have the power to determine the shape of my life. I had that power. I'd say we have that power. The story was written there on my arm. I knew it was going to hurt like hell, and it would take longer than I wanted, but we would heal. That even with all of our possessions gone, we had so much. We had humor and hope. We had a community that cared and would not let us go. When the nights got long and I wondered how I could live, I remembered with gratitude that we all walked out of that house. And those were Loretta's words, not mine. She got to gratitude right away. Took me a very long time. We all walked out of that house. Resilience was already a part of my story. I could rely on that muscle anytime, trusting that some part of me already knew the way through this, to that next future I couldn't yet imagine. My whole life I've been asking how it is that some people survive horrible experiences and some do not. I've studied psychology and theology, read myself into the world of fantasy and dreams, searching for that ancient alchemical formula that transforms shit into gold. P.S. I cannot believe I'm swearing on the chancel. This is against every single rule in my body.
If I quote you, can I say that word?
I already said you can do whatever you want. So, there are all kinds of theories and all kinds of stories that take us traveling along on the hero's journey. Here's mine. Maybe a little bit of love can accomplish more than any strategy or treatment plan. Maybe a heart left open will heal itself again and again. Maybe it's resilience, good company, imagination, and willingness. Maybe it's strength or luck or time doing what it can do. Maybe there's more than we can comprehend with our limited human understanding. Whatever fires of life have come your way, you are stronger than you know, and you can survive more than you think you can bear. You may not be able to imagine a way through right now, but like others have held out hope for me, I can hold the hope for you. We can take turns holding each other up and cheering each other on. You are a good investment. And chances are good that if you've lived this long, you already possess the foundation of resilience. I hope you too find your way.
When all else fails, let's see what a little love can do. Is that the line?
Yeah.
Let's see what love can do, which is a great mantra.
Yeah.
And you bring that in so often and beautifully. Yeah. Let's see what a little love can do.
Yeah. It's so much the experience of my life. is folks showing up in ways I didn't expect or being there and offering that little bit of love just as enough to keep me holding on, keep me tethered. And in particular, there were some couple of women that I'll tell you about who were amazing about this. So I'm about 22 at this point, this story, and just starting to get sober. So I see the double life of external success and internal suffering was starting to take its toll. So by the time I made my way back to recovery at the age of 22, I was ready. I'd already been to plenty of meetings by then. I knew the drill. Go to a meeting every day, don't drink, read the recovery literature, talk to people, get a sponsor, work the steps. I also knew that I couldn't and wouldn't do most of these things. So I picked a couple and turned my attention to the first two. I stopped drinking and I went to a meeting every day. Already I knew what to do, how to take what I needed and leave the rest. I knew enough to join a meeting where I wasn't going to know anybody. Somewhere I would be able to let my guard down as best as I could. So I found this Polish Catholic church in the town I lived in that had a 7 a.m. group that met every morning. I didn't know it then, but I learned later that there's something about early morning for me, something about showing up before I have the chance to armor up that makes all the difference. There in the basement of the church, more than 50 people would show up every morning and seat themselves in these concentric circles, drinking terrible coffee, watching ants crawl by on the ancient carpet. Everywhere around us were pictures of a very white, very blonde, long-haired, Greg Allman-style Jesus on the walls, with cross-stitched sayings like, "One day at a time," and "First things first." Every morning that I showed up and sat down without running from the room was a serious win. It took me about a week to notice that wherever I sat in that meeting, these two older women would sit right behind me. One of them just happened to look exactly like my grandmother, her long white hair wrapped tightly on top of her head in a bun. The two of them were in their 70s, and they were kind and they were funny. Every morning they'd find me and set themselves down gently, consistently asking me how I was doing and making a couple of suggestions. "Why don't you move up front?" they'd say, "so that when everybody talks and it moves around the circle, you can talk too." "Sure." "How many days have you been sober now?" they'd ask. "Why don't you pick up a coin?" I hated all their suggestions, but they were always there, and they would disarm me with their kindness. They'd show me pictures of their cats, so many pictures of their cats, and they'd draw me into conversation about what they'd been watching on TV the night before, which was always WWF, Worldwide Wrestling Federation. When I told them how much trouble I was having sleeping and how hot it was in my unair-conditioned apartment, they pooled their money and bought me a fan and brought it to the next meeting. When they suggested I start doing some reading about recovery, and I said, "I can't afford the books showed up on my seat the next day. There was basically no way to escape their unrelenting love.
Not just see what a little love will do,
That's
but
right.
see what a whole ton of it will do.
Every day, 7 a.m.
Oh, Jen, thank you. And I'm feeling like it might be time to gather questions. We promised an hour, and then we want to party hardy downstairs. So how does that feel to you if we...
I think pretty good.
Because who knows what you will be called to read once we get the questions.
Sure. Works for me.
It feels important to me that everything you really want this particular crowd to hear, they get to hear.
I think just the other part I'll say is there was this unrelenting love, and still is, and there was something inside of me all along, and I talk about this some with some other foul language that I will not use up here, but that there was some part of me that was pushing back against things that were trying to push me down, and that would come up in me as a pretty powerful force to live. And that combined with the love, I think, was part of what was keeping me going and moving me forward. So there's something to be said for anger and for that spark of life that is in us that wants to stay lit.
Yes, like the no that protects the yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Go, Jen.
that's important stuff too. It's not all soft. That's part of what I want to say there. Some of it's a lot of effort or a lot of living with that fire feeling. So.
I'm so aware for myself, and I'm guessing for many of you, that the way you model being a human being is very helpful to us. I'll say more about that in my closing.
I guess I just want to say about that too. I knew early on in my training for the ministry that I wanted to be a parish minister, like in a congregation, partly because I got to serve as a hospital chaplain for a little bit, and I realized I was meeting people in some of the hardest moments of their lives in those moments in the hospital, and then I never got to know what happened next. All I knew was what that awful moment was. And what I knew that I needed was to be in community with people and to see what happened next for them. And that has been a huge gift for me. You talk about people modeling how to be human. I mean, the gift of getting to hear so many of your stories and be with folks as they go through life. I mean, I get the best seat in the house, and it's not because it's a performance. I get to learn from everybody else about how to live and how to survive hard things, and how to turn that into gold,
Yeah.
So, again, it's not me doing this.
It is a sacred curriculum.
That's exactly right.
Okay.
I like a surprise. Let's see what we got.
I like legibility. Thank you. There's more. But wait, there's more. Do you, or how do you, celebrate the anniversary of the date?
Good question. It's starting to feel less important than it did the first time or two around. It's always an important day, and night and morning. And honestly, every time that day and night and morning rolls around and we're all okay, there's something really healing about that here we are getting through again. So what's interesting for me is there's that day, but it's really also been all the other big milestone moments, right? So, it coincided with back to school. So back to school always holds the fire memory for me anyway, and the remembering all the people that helped us. And it's another day that if we get through, feels really good. And same with holidays, and we tell a lot of stories about, hey, do you remember this holiday when we were in the rental house? Or when we were in that in-between year, and remember that. And feel a lot of gratitude for where we are now.
Yeah.
So
it's something to see you. I just realized that, it's you and then the fire as I'm sitting here. And it's right in front of your nose, right? And I'm thinking, I think you've said, it's like a reminder of what we're talking about today.
Good thing you're sitting over there.
But I've also, did you say recently something about how Kate and Henry can light a chalice at home or something, and it's
it's
okay.
Fine.
It's
yeah,
fine.
It's really, things have shifted so much over time, and I remember really clearly, I went into get a massage with a new person, right? And I show up, and she had done all this beautiful candle lighting and this and that, and I walked in, and I was like, oh, hell no. I just turned around and walked out, and I was like, come here. If you could go in there, blow all of those out, open the windows, and then maybe we can start again. Yeah. So, but now it's different. Like, it's changing, so it doesn't hit me the same way. But we laugh about that.
More healing.
Yeah.
Oh, yes. Tell us about your writing process. What would you like to share about your writing? And how did you get from your early 20s to seminary? Well, we got time, right?
Yeah.
No rush here. We got food downstairs.
I'll talk about the writing process a little bit. So I'm really grateful. Writing has always been part of my spiritual practice, and it's one of the tools in my toolbox, right, that I pick up or put down, but is pretty consistent through my life. Of every morning I just start off with 3 pages of free writing, generally illegible to myself as well, so I don't have to worry about anybody reading it. It's just a clearing process, like just get out whatever I'm worried about, working on. Lately, I've started ending it by writing a prayer for myself for the moment, and that's been really helpful. So that's just foundational, baseline. And then for writing for the book, I didn't think I was writing a book. I'm still honestly kind of surprised it is a book because it wasn't my intention when I started. I was writing for myself and for my own healing. And I was writing in a lot of ways because I have this thing. Maybe it's partly ministry, right, of like paying attention to the details because they matter and I don't want to lose them, and they're good for telling a story. And after the fire, there were all these details about the experiences and what it felt like and what was happening, and I didn't want to lose them, but I also didn't want them living in my head, like on repeat, which is what they had been doing. So part of what I was trying to do was get that stuff out of my head onto the paper so I could trust something and someone was holding it, and it didn't have to be me on repeat, awake and still awake and still awake. So that's how it started, and I was working with a writing coach, Reverend Karen Herring, who's literary minister over at Unity in St. Paul, and she gave me great writing prompts, and one of them turned into what is chapter 1 of the book. It was an essay I wrote about what would you take, if your house was on fire, because I was sick of running into that question, because I'm like, no, really, real life, this is not true. And so I just had fun writing that, and I submitted it as an essay to this online journal, and it went easier than I thought, and an editor read it and reached out, and that never, ever happens. So I just want to be clear. I understand how lucky I am, and how that was a good lightning bolt for me, of completely, wow, didn't see it coming. So anyway, then I wrote a book.
You make it sound so quick and easy.
Yeah, just like that. So,
is there any way you want to answer this?
Yeah.
Is there?
Yeah.
Shall I?
Sure.
Was the fire a blessing in disguise?
I want to answer that because first response would be no. In that I would never choose that experience, and I would never choose it for anyone else either. I would say really the book and what I've been trying to do with the fire and with my life is these hard things happen. How do I turn them into something? How do I take something that was hard and awful and undeserved and turn it into something that can be useful for myself and for others? And that's the blessing, is that I feel like the fire has made me useful in other ways than I was before. And if I was going for the biggest blessing of it, I am a worrier, I am a planner. I have 18 alternative endings that I've worked out for everything. I have a spreadsheet. I worry about a lot of stuff in advance, trying to keep myself and everybody around me safe. And part of what I learned in the fire stuff was I can't plan. I cannot plan for what really takes me off guard. I mean, and so all this time I spend worrying and trying to control, it's a large waste of time most of the time and energy. And that what I need to do is prepare myself and be grounded so that when stuff happens, I'm here and I'm ready, and ready to do it with love. So that and the fact that I learned that, the house was, I love our house. I love our things. I want things to be stable. And it was never the house that we needed, it was each other, so.
Jen, when you said, I'm a worrier, I thought you said you're a warrior. And I thought, yes,
or a warrior.
Yes, you are.
I'm a worrying warrior. For sure.
But you have been a warrior in the best spiritual sense. Spiritual warfare. And how about, do you want to do any kind of crash course in how you went to seminary? Do you want to say anything about that, or just is that going to be the next book? We do kind of. Yeah, she's not done.
I'm just thinking for a minute. I mean, the short answer is that I always wanted to be a minister. I mean, and I always knew that that was what I was supposed to be from the time I was a little kid. And I didn't think I could because I was queer, and I had all these stories that I didn't think I could share about who I really was and what my life was like. And I thought I had to hide. And as I started realizing I didn't have to hide, and that Unitarian Universalism existed, and I really didn't have to hide here, then it became possible. So
glory be.
Yeah.
Or as Ruth would say, Lordy Lucas.
That's right. Holy buckets. Lordy Lucas.
So I think that we are going to take this as an opportunity. I do have closing words, but I think we're going to take an opportunity now to not only see what love can do, but see what love and funding can do.
Oh, nice.
So this is a time when we invite you online people, and you people, who's in charge of this offering? Is anyone? How are we doing this? Oh, no, I was supposed to ask for money, and so I thought, let's see what some funding can do. Sure. By the time you've done 10 or 20 of these, you'll just roll it out.
Everything will be so simple. But you're probably going to say this, but we wanted to give folks an opportunity to support the ministry of the church if you want to. It's not required. It's never required. But that this place is just one spot in the world that offers this opportunity for healing and for love washing over us, and to make that available to as many people as possible is what we're about.
That is about what I was going to say,
Is that
but
what
you
were
said
gonna
it
say?
so
Sorry.
much more gracefully than I would have. So let's see what our universalist love and commitment can do.
Amen, amen.
How you doing?
Sorry, I was heading off in my own head.
Are you with me?
Are we going back to the bathroom floor or the basement floor, or where do you think we should go?
I'm going to ask us to sing at the end, or
right.
hum into our masks, or whatever we do these days. And I even have a pitch pipe, because I hear we have no. I could leap down there and play an E, but I will just do it here. It's been so good to see all of you here. Thank you. And I'm just saying that while the baskets are moving. Yes, thank you. And it is, we do hope that you will join us downstairs for
That's right. I'm
the revelry part of what we're doing.
Sign some books.
sign some books, and if you buy them here at church, from the church benefits a few more dollars for the mission and vision. You have something you want to read?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
So this is just the end of the book, and I think this will work. Early on after we returned home, we'd catch a whiff of the smoke smell and the nightmare would descend on us. Panic and loss and fear, breath I chased but could not catch. We wondered if we could stay, if we'd have to sell the house we'd put all we had into, if the smell would ever go away. Some days we wondered if it was even real. I don't know when it stopped, but the smell doesn't come around anymore. My kids light a candle at dinner as we say our prayers and fight to blow it out when the meal is done. They want to watch the smoke and play with the wax. It's only me now that sometimes flinches at the fire. Lying on my back in the basement, which is where I do yoga now, another unbelievable thing, I wonder if it will always be this way, and I know now that it won't. As uncomfortable as I can still get, I know that this too shall pass, that time takes time, that change will happen one day at a time. After all, I'm doing yoga on our basement floor, and no one could have predicted that. I can trust that change will keep coming, good and bad, because God knows I didn't see that lightning coming, or this friendship, or that job, or this wild love. As the kids and the dogs wander through this tucked-away corner of the basement I've carved out for myself, checking in and nudging me with their wet noses when I try to settle into silence, I remember that I am never alone, even when I want to be. It's a true fact. Friends and family and construction workers of all kinds will keep showing up when my house or my heart breaks. They will do for me what I cannot do for myself. Holding on to hope, spray painting the ceiling, putting up the walls. It will never be just me and my backpack again. It never really was. We're never alone in this. That's what I want to tell you.
Amen.
Amen on that.
So these are my closing words before we sing together. An early church leader a couple thousand years ago said, "The glory of God is a human being fully alive." The glory of God is a human being fully alive. Irenaeus, I think it was, St. Irenaeus. And we sometimes wonder exactly what that looks like. And history shows us, and we see now in our world, tragically, how that wisdom gets clouded over. And yet, what you're doing here, Jen, is telling and showing what it looks and feels like to become a fully alive human, a project necessarily messy, yet always holy. So, though you don't mention God very often in this book, your book feels like a prayer. Thank you for writing the book of your life, which calls us back again and again to our root purpose, the one we sing about when we sing, Spirit of Life, come unto me. And I think it would be lovely just to sing it in our group a cappella way. And I believe...
So I'll just say, though, for anybody that's not comfortable with singing, now's a good
Yes.
moment. Hop out. And
Yes.
also, it's page 123 in the gray
Oh, but we don't want
hymnal if you're new
Yeah.
and don't know the
if you
song.
must. Humming is safer if one wants to hum, but a few of us should have the words, and I know it starts on E. And would you douse my mic, please?
Also, and also mine. Save us all. There we are. Spirit of life, come unto me. Sing in my heart all the stirrings of compassion. Blow in the wind, rise in the sea, move in the heavens. giving life the shape of justice. Roots hold me close, wings set me free. Spirit of life, come to me, come to me. Yay. Also, look. Thank you, thank you. Thanks so much for coming. See you downstairs if you want. See you around. I'm so grateful for all of you. Thanks.